Good morning, guys. Risk on, guys. It is risk on. So welcome to this first day of May. Markets are popping pretty darn good. Microsoft and Meta earnings came out yesterday, and both of them are up like 6 or 7. Meta's up 6, Microsoft 9%. That is pretty spectacular. These are big companies. $1 trillion companies popping that much. Yeah, so I would call that risk on. That was a pretty interesting aftermarket. They closed yesterday, was good, and they popped into it, and then the earnings came out, and it just kind of stayed up, and that's been moving higher since. So that's the only word, the words this morning, risk on. So cryptos are up, everything is up, and that's kind of funny how that works. So a little bit of good news definitely was needed for the market. They were kind of looks like they were just waiting for it. Just absolutely waiting for it. Now the news this morning, we have a fair amount coming out. The job cut report, I believe, came out already. Yes, that they came out at 105,000. They went down for 275 last time, so it's 105 this time. At 8:30 we get jobless claims. 9:45 we get PMI manufacturing. 10 o'clock we get ISM and ISM manufacturing and construction spending. And that's about, we have some buyback results at 2. But it's not that big of a deal. So 8:30, 9:45, and 10. And that gas report at 10:30. So that's the news we have in front of us. But I think the big news for today is really Microsoft Meta earnings popped the market late in the session. That was a little pop we have, we see here on the bottom. Let me slide this up a little bit. Like so. And capital flow. So it looks to me like we just managed to clear this hurdle. Yesterday was the day where morning looked pretty freaking gnarly, and then we ended up towards the slow grind right back up again. They were down here flushing out all the stops here quite a bit lower down to the 54.50s, and halfway through that day they started moving this higher again. That was after we got that PCE and the inflation read. And since they closed towards the highs, and you can see the last part of yesterday, end period, we started taking up to the upside in a pretty good way. And then we had that the earnings come out, and we popped, and we closed at the highs, very much way up here above the 5600s. And the overnight has been just holding on to the gains and extended to the upside. We're at 5660 and well up in this upper area. So I would start off looking for the long side of the market. See if we can run it up here to the attractor at 57.50. That's going to be the next one to look for. We are right now at this volume attractor at the 56.70. We're just shy of it, but you can see the little volume bulge here, right? So we are right up here against this attractor area. But I'm going to be looking for moves to the upside, buy weakness for rotations back up. And let's see if this risk on move actually gets some legs. So if they can hold on to this. We get Amazon and Apple earnings come out after the close, and if they are at least just not bad, I think we have a shot at holding on to this. But anyway, anything can happen. They come out bad earnings there or some bad guidance. So yeah, we can be right back down again. But this is a very positive step forward. The capital flow looks like it's about to turn. If we can hold this day above this area congestion, because we've been probing here quite a bit in this congestion area. We had the hardest time getting up above it. We built value there for a little bit. And now in K period for that was Wednesday, that was Tuesday's trading. So Tuesday's trading, we were probing pretty darn good upside. And then yesterday's trading, Wednesday's trading, that was disaster after that GDP read. And then PCE number comes out, inflation read, and we are right back up again. So market wants to trade higher. It's what the way I read this. They want to trade this higher. People are looking at adding to picking up these bargains before they are gone. And it's going to be, we may see a little bit of a rush on this as people start piling on. If this is a risk on environment again, piling on to get in while the pricing is good, it could drive these prices up quite a bit. So initially starting the ES, looking to buy weakness. Buying the 56.50s, fairly aggressive. We are trading right above it. 56.35s. 56.25s down to the 56.15s for rotations back up. They start trading below that 56.25 level. I would still be looking to buy against that 15, but starting to look for that retracement trade at that point and see if they can run it all the way down here to reverse retest the 5600s. That song would be the last one. If they start taking out the 25 and the 15s here, start probing down below it, I would look for a short trade right down here to the 5600s and potentially look for a long trade there again. That would be the last one. They take out the 5600s. That would be the gap, not gap closure, but reversing this little pop from yesterday and reverse retesting the 5600s. That would be the last one to buy against. Below that one, I think bets are off. We're backing down a little bit too much for this move higher to continue, at least for the day session. Now things can change. I mean, as you saw yesterday, it looked pretty crazy in the morning, weak, super weak, and then everything turned around on a dime. So, but you need a piece of news for it, and yesterday's news was that inflation read. So at this point, I'm going to buy weakness, 56.50s, pretty aggressive, 56.35s, 25s, and 15s are the ones I would be looking at initially. If they take out the 15 and 25s, looking for a short rotation down here to the 5600s, and that would be the last one below the obvious I would look to buy against. And below that one, I think I'm taking off any attempt to take this higher and go back range band, even start looking at the short side. But that's a pretty good move to the downside if that happens. I don't think that's in the cards right now unless some news comes out really bad. And on the way up, looking for short setups. Not going to be super aggressive on it at all, actually, until they get up here towards that 57.50s. I would look for a potential short up here against that high volume area, and at least the first time to it. On the way up, there could be areas. You have a low volume area at the 56.80s. You have a small attractor here at the 57.15s, the low volume area after that. So it could be something in between here as well, stalling the market. But I think the main attractor is going to be right up here at the 57.50s. And on the way down, the lower attractor here at 56.20-25, that's your little high volume attractor. So, but if that comes out and they start trading below that, look for that potential retracement and reverse retesting 5600s. And below that one, bets are off. That's going to be looking for the short side at that point. Looking to the short side. All right, so that's how we get started on the ES this morning. So looking for continuation to the upside. Let's see how crazy this is going to get. But I mean, it's Microsoft and Meta up $35 in the pre-market, $38 on Meta. Man, that's pretty heavy. That's a lot of money. That's a lot big moves on those stocks. So the earnings had to be freaking great, I guess. And I think the bigger part of that earnings report may not be the actual earnings, may probably be the guidance. And if the guidance is well, tariffs doesn't really affect us that much, so guidance is going to be to the upside. Yeah, the market like that. So bonds back up again to 117. Range bound, I would call it today. We have been going back and forth this distribution. Looks like we're coming to balance here around that 116.09, 117. We have one high volume area at 116.06 to 8, one here at the 17.24.26, and one here below it. So we'll see where they're going to start filling out this gap. And right now they're trading between these two high volume areas. And I would look to sell up to that area, the 118. I would look to buy down to that 16, and maybe 115, 16s. For rotations back up again. So trading in that range right now in the capital flow, and no directional move really looking on the bonds, what I can tell. So they're going to sell strength 117.04s, 08s, 14 to 13 to 14s for rotations back down. Looking to buy weakness 24s, 20s, down to the 09s for rotations back up. I would say below the 16 or the 18 to 20s here, I would start looking for maybe a pullback down to the 08s or the 02. So it could be a short trade in there if they take out that 16, 18 to 20 support area. So it's pretty much range bound trading on the bonds to get started. And let's see if we're going to get continuation. If anything, I would prefer I would prefer the long side this morning, given the dynamic in the overnight. So looking to buy weakness at 17.24, 16.24, and 16.20, 18 to 20. That would be my preferred setup, but I would say that is a very, very slight bias to the upside on the bonds. I would say primarily range bound. Nasdaq is the one which is going to be popping. Look at that thing. That is making some headwind. Some headway. Making some headway. Look at that thing. That is a pretty freaking good move to the upside in the overnight. So they took out this resistance area, the high at the 680s, and this is like in the last half hour. They started taking this higher, and they popped from 550 to almost 900. So 400 points, 500 points up in the overnight. That is pretty spectacular on the Nasdaq. So yeah, but risk on. They are already back up here to this attractor area to 20,060s. So they just covered this whole thing in the overnight, and then the ES is kind of grinding up towards the attractor area, but Nasdaq is already there, and chances are we're going to see them try to charge that. And I would say short setups against the 20,200 up to that 20,500 going to be the next area of congestion to get through for the Nasdaq. So at this point, the first time to this level, I'm going to give it a little bit more room because we did that 70, 80 here before we get up to the attractor area. But when it runs up there, I would look for a little pullback, see if they first time to that level, and then we'll see if they're going to charge it again and potentially take this higher. So initially looking to buy weakness, and there could be a short in there on the Nasdaq the first time to this one, to this level right now. When it come up here towards that 20,070s or the 114s, it's hard to say where exactly what that would be. It's a fairly wide range. It's like a 100-point range, but you get getting pretty close to it. So I would not be surprised that first time to it we get a little bit of a pullback, and then maybe another retest, and that's going to be the key thing to watch. If they start trading below that the London low at the 890s to 900s, I would start thinking about retracement trade. I would say confirmation below 850. I would really start thinking about retracing this because this is just not very strong, and this is just they just ran through this area. So if they start probing in this area, there could be a probe all the way down here to reverse retest the 680s. So that would be a nice short setup, and not quite seeing that in the cards today, given the moves on the Meta and the Microsoft stocks. But it feels very much that there's an AI risk on kind of a trade going on today. You see the energy stocks, the aggregator stocks all up by building these the companies building the data centers and stuff. So they're all to the upside. So it feels very much like an AI risk on kind of a trading day. So I would start looking to buy weakness, 960s, 930s, 900s, down to that 850 level. Below 850 is going to start looking for a retracement trade to the downside. Still looking to buy against the 800s down to the 720s and the 680s. Yeah, it's not that aggressively if they start heading lower like that, but that could be a pretty aggressive, pretty big short trade in there if they're going to run it that much lower. Not quite seeing that developing today though, but it's you just have to mention it. Anyway, I'm going to be looking to buying weakness down to that London low, 890 to 900 to get started. Last one for me would be at 850. Then I'm going to start thinking short side of the market and see if I look for that retracement trade. Still, but even if that retracement trade happens, looking for buying opportunities against these lower support areas. If the trade band below the 680s, yeah, then I'll just stop looking for that and just go back in that lower range again. So risk on to the upside. Not going to be very aggressive on the short side on the ES and Nasdaq. The only short I see it would be here up against that 20,070s, maybe the 2110s. I didn't have an edge here at the 70s. I left it blank, but there could be something there. I just don't have anything to lean against right there. So that's the Nasdaq. Big hopes today for the Nasdaq, and it's a little bit more risk on continuation. And then finally, oil and gold. And there you have it. Look at gold melting down, pardon the pun. That is I think risk off on gold. So gold is getting totally hammered. They are absolutely getting knocked down. And as I said as I said yesterday, this low, if that low volume area, the 3270 came out, the next run down would be down to the 3230s, 40s. And they went there and then they just kind of ran straight through it. Now they're down to the next low volume area, 3200s. So gold really, really moving lower. And that is people just dumping gold and probably rotating into equities, risk on. So that's what I would think about that gold trade. So I would trade gold from the short right now, but you have to be very mindful on gold because when they have big moves in the overnight like this, the day session can retrace pretty hard, as you saw yesterday. So yesterday's move down here, they ran it down here and then they retraced it right back up again. And a pretty good retracement can happen as well in gold, at least back to that 3240s, that attractor area. So if this are probing a lower edge right now, I could certainly see them running right back up to this attractor at the 40s. But it's going to be volatile on gold. So you trade that with a lot of caution. But I would look to sell strength up to that 32.45 level. That would be the London high. Above the London high, I'm going to stop looking for short setups. But basically, at this point, 32.20s, 28.9s, 35s, up to that 44, 45 level. 4 rotations back down again. And then we'll see if the day session continues what happened in the overnight here. So that's a key thing on gold. If we see continuation in the beginning of the session, they're probably going to be a pretty ugly day on gold. If they stall it there and start retracing, usually you have a pretty good retracement kicking in, and that could be a nice long trade on gold. Against the trend, just back up here to that 32.40 level. We'll see, but these are big bars. I mean, these bars are what? This little bar right there, 11 up to 17. So like about 15 points on gold. That's volatile. Remember, gold used to move like in that buck or two. Now we're looking at 10, 12 bucks a bar. That's a lot. So volatile gold traded from the short side to get started. And let's see if you're gonna see some continuation here in the day session. And a little surprise there on oil. Look at that thing. Heading lower, big time. They move out of the middle to the downside on oil. Now, I don't have any news, I think, on that one, more than the oil report. I mean, I don't think that was anything specific. But look at oil taking out support, 59, 58, 50, 59, and starting moving lower. So stay on the short side on oil. Look to sell strength up to that 57, or this is like 58. It's 57.80 to 58, fairly wide range, and then the 58.40s. You trade back up about 58.40 to 50s, go back range bound. But this probe to the downside is pretty significant. We don't have much to lean against below the 60 level. So staying on the short side, and then look for short setups against the London high and the session highs at 57.80 to 58 and the 58.40 to 50s for rotations back down again. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for gold. For oil, not going to be aggressive on the long side on oil, and no reason to. They are moving lower. There could be some announcement, something may have happened, but this is what I've been talking about. The oil is going to be trending lower until we get down into that 40-50 range. Once we're in that range, maybe not so much, but they are definitely moving lower. And if you look at capital flow, and looking at that thing again, this is what happens. This is the do this. Here you have the end of the last administration and what they were doing, trying to create havoc in the oil market. They were doing a bunch of stuff there. They popped the oil market, and then since then it's been a straight shut down. One little pop here, and when they were in the end of March, early April. Some oil news came out there, and then we have just been on a steady trajectory to the downside. So oil is going to come down. And I would say in the 40-50 range is what I would look is the targets I've heard at least people talk about. And we'll see how far they can take it, but at this point, trade it from the short side, and let's see how far they can take it. So now retracement trade. They're at this point retracing pretty good on oil, so look for a short setups against this upper area against the 57.80 to 90, 57.80 to 59, 58s rotations back down. So as you can see, big move to the downside, nice retracement going on. It could be a long trade in there too, taking it up to the mean. It's kind of late in the session right now because you're almost at the mean here on the short term. So just trade that with a lot of caution. So oil volatile, gold volatile, both of them going to be difficult to trade. So it's going to be an interesting day for sure. But it looks like all the markets are moving to some extent. All right, back to the ES, and we are pretty much where we left it. So news coming out at 8:30. And so we have 8:30 news, 9:45, and 10. So I'm going to wrap it there for now. So let's see what kind of continuation we get from the overnight based on the earnings we have. And then we have earnings coming out big time, Apple and Amazon coming out after the close. And if they confirm anything close to what we had on the Microsoft and Meta, then I think we can continue this rally pretty good. We will find out. All right, guys. I'll see you back at 11:30 for the next update later.